Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, thank you to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to the video. Gracias. Bueno, everyone. Before getting into the topic again, allow me to thank everyone for the support and the great reviews on the book that I recently put out on Amazon. Dearly from the heart, gracias. Okay, well, on this one, I wanted to share with you guys. I said it a lot, right? Through the time that I've been here, putting out my story and stuff, right? How a lot of people consider California big, right? Which is, but when it comes to our world, it's a small world. Mainly, someone's gonna know who someone is and his wiggles, his funny ways, whatever it may be, right? It's a small world, believe me. Especially once you reach a certain stage of wiggling amongst the causa, right? But anyways, today I wanna touch on the Billy Kenny from Ontario, and I don't know if everyone really knows when he got busted. It's in the '90s. I remember first time I heard of him was when I was still with Raul. They're just the same era of when they became, the '70s, and he mentioned him, and of course, when you have a celly, you start going back and forth with what's there, and I share with Raul, my familia and all that, and but like I stated before, thank God Raul was different. He really was. We never really, or he never addressed me in that sense, of doing something in that aspect. The one thing he told me the story how Kenny got busted, and it was when he was out here, he was doing his thing big. In Michoacan, it's not only a place that has a lot of wiggle when it comes to dulce, right? But it's real hard to get in there, you know. And Kenny was there, and he had his pipeline. And for those that know, back in the days, Michoacan is the queso, or what people call it, meth. And he was doing his thing, with numerous homies. But due to the error, per se, of two individuals, you know, G from Hondero, that he would end up getting busted and then going weenie right away. And the other one that was stood in Mexico and was part of the reason he did the bust and busted Kenny was Tatu from Eastside Wilmas. Now keep in mind I'm talking about '96, right? When this is being expressed to me. and it was if I could help, you know, get to him. They wanted to get him since '96. Basically ask my familia, see if something, but in the areas at the moment that family members were in, Homer was not around. He blended into Mexico. Like I stated, there's a lot of vatos that do that, right? Especially if they don't have a lot of tattoos. They tend to blend in and they start playing a part. They join a faction, whatever. And that's what Homeboy did. That's why he went underground. And throughout the years, he was he was real wanted. But I think the mistake was from the organization. I don't know if Kenny never really spoke about him or what, but they used to say that that dude was sick something and all this. They described him with all these ways about him, right? That you had this image in your head. And of course, when you ask for a favor, you ask with them descriptions. Which, anyways, throughout my time, it would come up frequently, mainly because you know the type of things we were doing. I'll put it like that, and things would end up playing out. I would learn more about the feeling, and I'm not talking about homies or other feelings. I learned from family, right? The type of juice, like I put out before, he had in Michoacan and till date. And anyways, that's not important. Time will pass. Like I said, that name kept always coming up, and you being a soldado, of course. Someone that's wanted so much was it's gonna log into your head, right? Even though I could recall real good camaradas that I did things for, or we bumped heads, or there was a never negative effect because there was a lot of answering there, there was a lot of explaining there. But this individual, it was just because his name was being brought up in by numerous of these. You gotta keep in mind, the type of reach that Kenny had. He was putting a lot in a lot of individuals' hands, or a lot of feelings, should I say, right? And he was doing a lot for the cause. So when he got arrested due to certain individuals, of course, there was this thing there, resentment, however you want to say it, for his vato, right? So, anyways, not to make this very long, as you guys know, I would end up doing my time. I would go to the feds. The last one that told me to keep an eye on this individual was Sana in the feds. And again, I know the individual. I never met him. It was just through palabra. And again, they were referred to him as being a big dude. 6 something, or 250 pounds. And his tattoos. They would definitely say he could not race him because he had Isai Wilmas, but in letters, like ESW. And, well, according to them, he only had 2 tattoos. So, anyways, I would end up getting out the feds, and as you guys know, the day I got out, I had given my word, and I had promised to report myself right in Mexico and blend in and start pushing for that what was needed, and which I did. Now we're speaking about a year, yeah, a year and a half after I got into Mexico, right? I got out here in the end of 2018, and yeah, 2019. It was right before we got cracked in Nayarit. Just out of the blue, we got sent out to look at something. I'll put it like that. It was for Ubers and stuff like that, right? But it was for in the state of Colima. You guys know Colima mainly always been run by Sinaloa, right? To later on, the four letters and Sinaloa pretty much shared it, and it's because of the puerto. The puerto is real important if you guys get it. But anyways, we would end up going out there to look at an Uber. I'll just leave it like that. And just out of nowhere, out of nowhere, I'm sincere, there was some individuals from La Familia out there too looking at these Ubers because, I don't want to say it, but you guys can imagine, a puerto that comes in from anywhere, and in this, I always been one of them curious cats, For example, I see someone that has that stilo where you can't disguise it, Even though you blend into the things in Mexico, you still have that difference, in the way you speak, and even in the tattoos, And the one thing that stood out to me in this individual was his tattoo, And I met a lot of homies from Eastside Williams to know what it stood for, Basically, he had gotten more tattoos and tried to disguise it, but it was there, It's kind of the things you have to keep pointing a lot in prison of, Certain cats getting there with tattoos that sometimes that's how you reference them because they're either on hard candy, soft candy, or whatever. But anyways, I didn't say nothing. I didn't say nothing because I knew we had to leave. We were there for something real important. So we had to leave, but we had to come back. The people we met there, they were going to bring something to test, and we were going to come back, and the old man D was going to be with us. As I went back, D would later come down to meet with us in Culiacan, and I brought up to his attention, like, hey, I'm just curious, this individual, that they're your brother, because, they're both from Onterio. Kenny, like this and that. I heard him over the years, but, nobody has found him. You haven't heard of him? No. Hey, but he should stand out, like, he's over 6 feet, over 250 pounds. I mean, it's not like it's common in Mexico, And he said, I don't know who told you that, but nah, that's not Tatu. Tatu's a midget. He's just fat. He's probably them 250 pounds. He's about 5 feet, 5'1", 5'2", somewhere there. So when he said that, I knew exactly that it was this individual, right? Because no, I didn't want to say it on it, but when I seen him is, the first thing that brought into my head when I seen him, like, what guy, right? But then I started tripping on the tattoos, and he had some sense of authority there, right? And then I exposed my hand to D, and I told him, look, I know that we're not welcome a lot in Michoacan. There's not a there ain't no homies after Kenny and Fox and them that are out there pretty much doing anything, right? And this is a bitch who I don't know if it was behind what he was doing for Kenny or on his own or however he made his stay in Michoacan. I told him I had ran into him. He's like this, and that. Yeah. And I told him, yeah, he's going by a different name though right now. And he asked me like, who? He introduced himself as Chaparro from La Familia. And then we started organizing it, like, hey, we're going to go out there. At the spot, we can't do nothing because them Sudamericanos are going to be there, and, for a certain reason. And, but I don't want you to keep pouring on his entrance, because the way it comes in, that's the way it's going to come out, to go back to Michoacan, and we can't let him go. And I agree with him. And again, throughout the years, I heard this individual was wanted. But keep in mind, I'm talking from 96, started hearing about this, 2019. In a lonely area of Colima, from California to Colima. And I just, I happened to run into this fool. And I told him, hey, Joe, and we kept pointing. And but we played it off, because the first go around with him was pretty smooth. And the way he kept trying to keep conversating with us, because he knew we were homies. I knew it was him. So basically we played it off. We're out there. We had some problems. So we're on the side of the road, and on his way back out, One truck, 3 individuals. And he stops, and as I'm telling him, we're playing the part. We don't know why this thing don't want to turn on or nothing. We went around the car, and I was telling him something, like, so did you like what you heard, Chaparro? And he said, yeah. And, not gonna glorify on it, but I just told him, like, is that right? Tattoo. And he opened his eyes, and it was a wrap. I don't want to go too much into details, but you guys could imagine. And we got into it with them other individuals that were with him, but then the day D and all of them were right behind. So we would end up, we could say, skating from there. A homie got shot, but it was it was not serious, you know. But anyways, the whole insight and point of the story is how the world is so small, you know. At least our world. You could go and do something and skate by and skate by, and eventually someone's gonna bump into you that knows you good, and that's it. To put out the reality of things as we're seeing it in firsthand, right? With certain individuals. And but anyways, everyone, the inside, the message in this one is, loyalty, honesty overall. You know, I met a lot of good camaradas that their palabra means something. But there is also these individuals like this cat. When Kenny got busted, he assumed Kenny left that pipeline open and that other individual from San Diego would end up taking the fall in the system, right? Which in a sense he did by locking it up right away. So he tried to rush out to Michoacan, shine everybody on, and take over what Kenny left behind. And you know what? To some extent, he was able to get in, not to the extent Kenny had it. And you know what's more surprising is how Mexico works. Because Kenny keeps doing his thing, right? With his family, his people. In Michoacan, but nobody ever told him, hey, Tatu's out here. But that's how small the world is. But anyways, I hope I made sense, everyone. You guys know my situation. Just after the live, I started. I don't know what's going to end up happening here in the next hour or so, but I might end up in the hospital. So if you don't hear from me in a minute, you know where I'm at. With this said, please always stay true to yourself and love your loved ones.